Welcome back to Next Gen Console Watch, our show following all the news and rumors on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. I'm Daemon Hatfield, and as always, I am joined by Ryan McCaffrey, host of IGN's Xbox podcast, Podcast Unlocked.
Hey.
Hello there. And Jonathon Dornbush, host of IGN's PlayStation podcast, Podcast Beyond.
Beyond. Hey, Daemon.
Hello there. We always, as always, let's try to keep things civil between these two console tribes. This week we're kicking things off talking about the different subscription services for each console, Xbox Game Pass, and then PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Now over on PlayStation. Both services definitely have their benefits. Of course, Xbox Game Pass has long been considered a very, very, very good deal in gaming. But Ryan, it seems like Xbox has really been stepping things up lately, making it an even sweeter deal, and we're getting more and more big games launching into Xbox Game Pass on day one. Things like Outriders. Now, of course, they're getting former Sony exclusives like MLB The Show. What do you think is going on? You think Xbox is really trying to just make it indisputable that Xbox Game Pass is where you want to be playing your games?
Absolutely. I mean, they are building a moat here that is going to be difficult for Sony to meet or beat in terms of perception at the very least. Not that they can't do it, because they very much could, but that's the thing. It's similar to the backwards compatibility efforts. Microsoft has been playing the long game on Game Pass. In fact, on Podcast Unlocked, we've been saying that Game Pass is a no-brainer deal for probably at least the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And now this year, it makes it seem like, oh, well, we not that we were lying before, but now look what it is now. And I have a feeling it's going to continue to go that way because, now Outriders, MLB The Show 21, this pile of new ID at Xbox games, like 20 something of those that are going to launch in, a lot of which look really, really great. And this is before the first party floodgates finally start opening for Microsoft, which we've been admittedly waiting for them many years to do. But that is going to happen, starting with Psychonauts 2 and Halo Infinite this year, and then looking, a lot more next year and 2023 and all the Bethesda stuff. So all that's coming on top of the great third party stuff that Microsoft's already doing with Game Pass right now.
Mm-hmm. So in addition to the games we've already mentioned for Game Pass, just this month, Xbox Game Pass subscribers are also getting GTA 5 returning to the service, Zombie Army 4, Dead War, NHL 21, Rain on Your Parade is an indie that's launching straight into Game Pass. And over on PlayStation Plus, Jonathon, there's some parity there. Zombie Army 4 is also coming to PlayStation Plus this month, getting Days Gone, which is a big, exclusive first-party Sony game. And then Oddworld Soulstorm launching straight into PlayStation Plus for PS5 owners, which is very cool. So what do you think about the situation now? Things aren't bad over on PlayStation Plus, right? Like there's still a lot of really, good looking games that people are getting every month at no extra cost to their PlayStation Plus subscription, right?
Yeah, it's an interesting case because at the end of the day, they're different services. Like PlayStation Plus is best compared to Xbox, what was Xbox Live, and then Game Pass came in, and PlayStation has PlayStation Now, but they're not really positioning it as equal. It doesn't get day and date games as much. There's less parity there than what Game Pass is getting, certainly with new upcoming games like that. And so PlayStation Plus, for what it is, has been having a pretty good run. I want to say almost every month since the PS5 came out, there's been a new game that launched day and date on PlayStation Plus as a brand new game you could get for no additional cost as a subscriber. So there's been a benefit to it after what was a pretty bad year for PlayStation Plus. Like, quite honestly, the lineups were a bit anemic. They weren't really putting some of their biggest and best games out there, and this partially came because they got rid of PlayStation 3 and Vita games as part of the lineup, so you were getting less games as well with no real added benefit. So PlayStation Plus, for what it is, looked at in the PlayStation vacuum right now, is doing pretty well, but when you look at it, of course, like colloquially compared to Game Pass, it just doesn't compare. I think if you compare it to the Xbox games with Gold lineup, it fares a bit better. I would say that lineup has definitely not been doing too well for games I'm interested in these days, but in terms of Game Pass, PlayStation just doesn't have anything quite like it, and they're not making the moves necessarily to push what they have into that space quite yet.
Do you think what we're seeing, you mentioned since the PS5 released, every month we've seen a brand new game launch into PlayStation Plus. Do you think that is Sony trying to sort of keep up with everything that Xbox is doing with Game Pass?
I think definitely a bit because, they don't need an excuse to sell PS5s. They're selling them as quickly as they can make them. So it definitely feels like more of a added benefit to have something really marquee to be able to show with this service because Game Pass, almost every week, I feel like we are getting really exciting announcements, really big news about it. And PlayStation Plus is a monthly drop. They only really get to talk about it once a month. And so that lends some excitement to it. And as a PlayStation owner, it has been nice to actually look forward again to the PlayStation Plus lineup every month. But that said, with Game Pass, you are seeing games be added or at least announced almost every week, if not a little bit more sparsely, but really big stuff day and date, like Outriders, like MLB The Show. You're seeing all of these new added benefits, and PlayStation does have PS Now. They've, reduced the price in past years. They've made it so you can download games and play them offline. They've put in some big PS4 games in a rotation, but they're not making it a dedicated aspect of the PS5 just yet. It doesn't really hold the same attention and weight that something like Game Pass does.
So Ryan, Games with Gold is a service that's been running for a while. If you subscribe to Game Pass, you get Games with Gold included, correct?
Well, if you are on Game Pass Ultimate,
has to be Ultimate.
That includes Gold, and then you'd get the Games with Gold. But actually, the vanilla $9.99 a month Game Pass does not include Gold, so there's the distinction between those.
Gotcha. But Game Pass Ultimate, $15 a month, and includes all the EA Play games as well. So that comes out to about $180 a year. Sony doesn't. I'm sorry.
Just 3 games worth.
Three games worth. Yeah. For access to quite a lot of content. Sony doesn't have a service that lets you, like an all-encompassing service, right, Jonathan? You would have to subscribe to PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Now. Is that correct?
They do not have a combined service, even though every week on Beyond we talk about how easy it would be, presumably, to bundle those things and give people a reason to subscribe to PlayStation Now. But yeah, they do not currently.
PS Plus is $60 a year, and then PlayStation Now is $100 a year. So you're talking about a $20 difference in between Game Pass Ultimate and subscribing to both PS Plus and PlayStation Now. So Ryan, in your mind, does Game Pass Ultimate offer a mere $20 extra value in comparison to PS Plus and PS Now?
I'm very confident in saying yes. It offers at the very least $20 more worth of value per year for sure. Mm-hmm.
And then Jonathan, before we jump on to our next topic, I guess I'll give you the final thought on this. How much of you do you hope or actually expect Sony to sort of answer everything that Xbox is doing with Game Pass Ultimate, or are they just not going to? Are they going to just continue going their own path?
I feel like your exasperated sigh at the beginning of this kind of speaks volumes about the difference we see here. Quite frankly, I don't expect them to do anything in the short term. Do I think they should? Yes. Do I think they will? No, because they've been operating at a successful level, and I don't think they necessarily will see a reason to change when they know that announcing a new God of War, announcing a Horizon is going to bring people to want to buy PlayStation 5s and is going to want people to, if it's online related, like they've had good games to make you want PlayStation Plus. I do think it would be smart to be forward thinking and start integrating these things and laying the groundwork for doing something like that, because I undoubtedly, as Ryan was saying, confidently Xbox Game Pass is much more valuable even than the combined value that you'd be paying for PS Now and PlayStation Plus. There's no competition there. But right now, I think PlayStation isn't trying to compete directly. And so we're in this very unique case where both platform manufacturers, are playing different games, and I think they're both playing those games well. But one of them on the Xbox side, I think, is a little more forward thinking than PlayStation is kind of playing by the playbook that we've seen before. And I think it's going to be a very interesting discussion, 3, 4, 5 years from now, in the middle of this generation, toward the latter half of this generation as well, where they both sit and what is the offering that players are going to most likely go toward.
Well, an upcoming event where we will most likely be hearing a lot about some games that are coming to both Game Pass Ultimate and PlayStation Plus is E3 which was just announced this week to be returning this year after taking 2020 off for obvious reasons. But it's returning as an online event. Online only, no in-person meeting to get hands-on time with these games. Microsoft's going to be there. Nintendo's going to be there, but not Sony. Jonathon, that's not too surprising, is it?
No, not at all. Their last E3 was 2018. So they had been pulling out of E3 even before last year's E3 didn't happen, and they had even, I think, confirmed that they weren't going to be at that show before that show announced it wasn't happening. So Sony has not been as interested in being at E3 for quite a while, and even their last showing in 2018 was a bit of a weird one. That was where they had the press conference where they shepherded a group of people around from one location to the next while having interstitial people in a coliseum watching occasional trailers. It was a very weird showing, and I think they are much more interested in owning the conversation about PlayStation, having their state of plays, having their PS5 showcases, and letting that speak for them.
E3 is promising 4 days of press conferences and then live game demos, previews, and developer interviews. Ryan, what's your sort of guess? What is E3 going to look and feel like this year?
I would presume it's probably going to look a lot like a 4-day version of Jeff Keighley's E3 Coliseum, except I don't believe Jeff's participating because he's doing his own thing, as IGN is. So you're going to have a few different places to go for a bunch of new game reveals and game deep dives and gameplay debuts and all these different things. But yeah, that'll be, it's not a small undertaking, having watched our crew do it last year. It's not a small undertaking to put together that much live programming. And Damon, you host it. You're part of the team that does it on site at E3 and pre-pandemic years, and there's a lot that goes into it. And so I'm eager to see what the ESA and E3 pulls together, because there are a number of publishers that have committed, but there are also a number that have not yet committed. Besides just Sony, there are a number of major third parties. So it's going to be interesting to see, if E3 can pack them in, virtually speaking, and hold your attention all day for 4 days on their stream, or if everybody's just going to kind of scatter to this channel here and that channel there. But I do want them to do well. I want E3 to be good and successful, and I hope that we can come back to a physical E3 at the LA Convention Center in 2022, because in my opinion, number one, it's the thing I look forward to the most every year at IGN. It is a privilege and a blast to cover it. It's the Super Bowl of the video game industry. For gamers, it's like 4 days of just like nonstop unwrapping new presents. Like, yay, what do we get? And so I want it to be a big thing that mainstream media covers, that gets the industry a lot of attention. So I hope the ESA can start to win back over some of these publishers that have walked away, like Sony and like EA. And I hope the event is big and does well.
Yeah, I've been saying, the first live concert experiences for people post-pandemic is going to feel like a magical, like a religious experience for a lot of people. And Ryan, I could see Xbox's live in-person E3 press conference 2022 to be sort of a similar feeling.
Oh, and what a difference it'll be from the last time they had an in-person one in 2019. They bought the studios and everything, but by E3 2022, if it's in person, they'll have shipped Halo Infinite. They'll have shipped a bunch of stuff. They'll have bought Bethesda and be showing. Starfield might already be out then, or maybe E3 2022 they're showing it and it's going to be out that fall. And it's going to be a real celebratory time for Xbox fans for sure. Once everybody can get back in that theater together.
But in the more immediate future, both consoles lineups past June of this year are kind of a big question mark. And we've got Returnal coming to PS5 at the end of this month. May we'll have Deathloop, we get Ratchet and Clank in June, and then after June, as of right now, Ghostwire Tokyo is supposed to come in October sometime, but doesn't even have a firm date. So, any sort of guess as to what we can expect if Sony has its own event in June? What we might expect to hear about?
I mean, my guess is they'll definitely do something around that time. Interestingly, they were the ones last year who ended up having the week that E3 was supposed to happen. That was when the PS5 showcase happened. So I'm pretty confident we'll still hear from PlayStation this summer. I think, we'll probably get some deep dive, most likely, about Horizon Forbidden West. I feel like that is probably going to be the marquee game for the fall, if it is still set for this fall. Hopefully we get a proper reveal of the next God of War. Even though I am fully expecting that to be pushed to 2022, I still feel like it would be a reasonable time to show that off. They have Gran Turismo. They have a few of those sort of announced things going on, as well as unannounced stuff and big third-party arrangements, whether it's stuff like Forspoken or Final Fantasy 16 that they've shown at past showcases. There are enough big games out there and smaller stuff that caught a lot of attention, like Stray. Kena Bridge of Spirits is coming out in August, so we might get like a final look at that as well. I fully expect we'll get sort of a look at what the second half of 2021 looks like for them and into next year, because they definitely didn't hold back last year, but there's still a lot that we're waiting to find out even more about from all of that. So they have plenty to discuss. It's just a matter of what's been pushed and what's still set for this year.
And then Ryan, surely Halo Infinite will be the big focus for Microsoft at E3 this year.
Oh yeah. That's the go big or go home moment, and it's time. So it'll be good to see it again and see the progress it's made since last summer, after it did not show super great and was subsequently delayed for a year. But again, Psychonauts 2, I fully expect to be probably launching around that time. We don't have a date yet, but just from my last interview with Tim Schafer for Podcast Unlocked, right at the end of last year, actually, it was the last episode of the year, he seemed to suggest like it's content complete. So it sounded like it's getting close there. There are some premier indie games, such as probably the indie I'm most looking forward to, 12 Minutes, which is an Annapurna game that is going to be launching onto Xbox. So, and that sounded like that's also soon-ish. So, there'll be an interesting mix, but Microsoft, I expect come E3 is going to be really showing us more of what they just teased us last year. They've shown a lot of their hand, but now, maybe we'll get a proper Fable gameplay reveal, a proper Forza Motorsport gameplay reveal, a lot of things along those lines that we just saw, either CG trailers of or soft announcements of last year.
Yeah, just cross my fingers for Perfect Dark.
Yes, I'm with you.
Before we go, I have the results of last week's poll. We were talking about how CD Projekt Red is planning to develop future Cyberpunk and Witcher games simultaneously. And we asked you, which would you rather have sooner? Witcher 4, an all-new Cyberpunk game, a GTA Online style open world Cyberpunk multiplayer game, or something completely new. And 51% of you said you'd rather have The Witcher 4 as the next product from CD Projekt Red. And in last place was that Cyberpunk multiplayer game. Only 7% wanted to see that next from the developer. We have a new poll for you to vote on for next week. We want to know, what do you think is the better subscription deal? Is it Xbox Game Pass Ultimate? Is it a combination of PS Plus and PlayStation Now? Make sure to vote at IGN.com. We'll share the results with you next week. And sadly, our time on this edition of Next Gen and Console Watch has come to an end, but we will be back next Friday, same time, Fridays, 6 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. Eastern, with more PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X news. Thank you to both Ryan and Jonathan. Everybody have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.